Hey everybody, Steve Fretzen here, and welcome to the Be That Lawyer podcast. I'm thrilled you're here. We are going to have some fun today. We're going to learn some stuff. We're going to help you be that lawyer, confident, organized, and a skilled rainmaker. For you guys that are figuring this out for the first time, I am a business development coach exclusively for attorneys around the world. I've got attorneys in 4 or 5 different countries, mainly in the US, and the focus is mostly business development, a little bit of personal branding mixed in there, which we're going to cover today. And really, it's about how do we systematize and make sure that with plans and processes, we can make business development and growing a book of business a sustainable part of your day, sustainable part of your life, and do it in less time with less effort. And a big part of that, Ruby, is how we develop our personal brands so that we're thought of. How are you thought of? I'm thought of. Attorneys are thought of in general. So first of all, welcome to the show. Nice to see you again.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. I'm glad to be here. It's quite an honor.
Awesome. Well, it's an honor. You had me on your podcast for everybody listening, the Power Up Your Practice podcast, and love doing that. And let's take a moment and jump into our quote of the show. We got a very familiar Gandhi quote here: "Be the change you want to see in the world." And tell us a little bit about that quote and why that is your quote of the show.
It resonated as a child. I had it on my signature, my little signature. But at my law practice, Powers Law Group, I had a mural painted with the "Be the Change," and I have some monarch butterflies that symbolize migrants. And so it's sort of like be that change that you want to see in the world. And I just feel like it's a good way to live your life. And if you see a problem, try to fix it and be the best version of yourself in society, and we can make the world a better place.
Yeah, and I think we need to take the role of setting the example. So whether that's business development, whether that's helping others, whether that's being a good parent, a good sibling, whatever it might be, we are there as an example, and people see that and can emulate it, or you're the opposite and people are probably going to run away from you, but we don't want that. So everybody, Ruby Powers is the host of the Power Up Your Practice. You've got a book with the same title, right? Isn't that correct?
Yeah.
That's awesome. So you're leveraging the powers, the theme of the powers.
Yeah.
There you go.
It's a pretty big book, but it's a great resource. So lots of good. Yeah.
And not most importantly, but in addition, you're a board certified immigration attorney at Power Strategy Group. So you're wearing a lot of hats, and I know we're going to get into that later, but that's amazing. Give us a little bit of your background and how you came to be and helping be the change in the world.
Well, I'm a child of a long line of entrepreneurs and a child of an immigrant. And that exposure and just sort of the worldview, I later wanted to help others. I was like, how can I do humanitarian law, human rights type of thing, intercultural relations, living abroad or speaking other languages, and business and law. And then boom, 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 figured out be an immigration attorney. And then as I progressed in that space, I was like, well, how can I help others run their law practices and share, because entrepreneurism, not everything, that doesn't always come easy to people. But if some people would learn some of these different things we're talking about today, then they could be better at their practice and help their clients more efficiently, easier, and have a better work-life balance. Having watched a lot of entrepreneurs in my family struggle and work so hard, and small business is the bedrock of the United States economy. And so that's why I wanted to get in that space, and entrepreneurism, small business meets law. And so having my podcast and 2 books on the topic, and then being an adjunct professor. So I'd say it's sort of like 2 verticals: law practice management with a legal tech niche, and then immigration. So it's a lot, but I enjoy it. It keeps me on my toes, and it's enough diverse worlds that I can keep at it.
Yeah, well, it's interesting, and you enjoy it, and like you said, you're helping a lot of people on the immigration side, and you're helping a lot of lawyers on the practice management side. So kudos to you on that. My late great father, Larry the lawyer, was the lawyer and the entrepreneur. And so his thing wasn't about me being a lawyer, it was about me being an entrepreneur. So he was always pushing that on. And my sister and I both became entrepreneurs. And so, it really resonated with us that being your own boss meant something. And is that sort of how you took it as well?
Well, I think we sort of we become sort of what we see a lot, right? And so on one side they were dairy farmers, on the other side they were missionaries. And so like, one was working the cows and the outside and out in the, out and about in the sun and the rain, and the other one was working for God. And so I was like, there's I was like, well, this is all I could sort of see, and then one aunt was an attorney, and my dad had his own business later on. And so the entrepreneur spirit was like, well, that just becomes normal. And when people aren't entrepreneurs, I'm like, why not? But
Yeah.
because that, even though that might be the minority, the entrepreneur, and but then also just that humanitarian aspect I got from my missionary grandparents, and just giving back, which I think we all try to find ways, even through our businesses, or helping try maybe to
Yeah.
contribute to boards or nonprofits. And so yeah, that was my normal. And just recently my daughter was like, she wants to be a lawyer. And I was like, okay, but let's talk about that.
Let's take a
She's
breath. Let's
12.
take a
Yeah,
moment. Yeah, let's take a moment on that. Um,
yeah.
wow, that's really great. The way that I look at it too is there are people that are in-house attorneys that say, I'm doing that because I don't want to be entrepreneurial, or I don't want to have to worry about building a book of business. And I'm thinking, yeah, but you still have to sell yourself to the company you're with. You still have to, look, if you're going to get a new job, you have to sell yourself to get the new job, to move up, to elevate, whatever it might be, to network and make sure that you're doing things. So it's like, it's always you Inc. No matter what you're in, whether you're a physical, like you and I, an entrepreneur running the show, or whether we're inside an umbrella of a facility or a company. Think people need to look at it like they're an entrepreneur within whatever operation they're in
They
anyway.
completely. And with my law students, I'm like, okay, who doesn't have a LinkedIn? Okay, you need to go make one right now. Like,
Mhm.
why don't you have one?
Yeah.
You're selling yourself when you're trying to get a job. And everyone should know what area of law you practice or what you're doing. There's another little thing that happened. I don't make a big deal about it, but it's actually part of this conversation. I was exchange student to Belgium with Rotary, and part of what we had to do in high school, the gap year, and part of what we had to do is we had to talk about ourselves. So we had to have little business cards with our little photo on it, and we had to do speeches in other languages and
Yeah.
network and shake hands. And so honestly, that like really helped catapult me to a whole nother level, because I was forced to do that, but I enjoyed it as a like a 18, 17-year old. And so then I took that and just took it to a whole nother level when I was starting my own business.
Yeah, yeah. And something that I've, observed about you, and it wasn't too difficult to do that, was the amount of content that you create, the books, the podcasts, and the things that you're putting out there. And I think one of the concerns that lawyers have, being busy people like you are, and I am, and everyone is, but is, how do I make time to create content? What content do I create, and what's the purpose of it? I could sit and write a book. What's the point of it? I could write articles
Mhm.
for a publication or for my blog, but what is it doing for me? What is it doing for the world? How is it making either things a better place? How am I leveraging it to make that time make sense, and that investment of time make sense? What's your take on that? Hey, everybody, do you ever wonder why top executives and athletes are so successful? It's typically because they have a coach, someone that is looking at them from the outside to identify their gaps, identify their potential. That's what I do. I'm Steve Fredson, and I'm here to help you be that lawyer. If you're interested in a free consultation, click the link below and we'll get together and we'll identify where you can make improvements to be that lawyer.
Well, I think you ultimately need to evaluate what your goals are to establish like what are you trying to accomplish, whether content creation makes sense or not. Because I think ultimately this comes down to your building out your brand. And some people are more introverted than others, and they love the writing part. Maybe some maybe more extroverted, and the podcast makes sense, or some combination. So establishing what your goals are, and then sort of what your strengths are, and leaning into that, and then figuring out how to use what your existing time and team are, and then building upon that as you grow. Like initially, I mean, like now at this point, we're creating content all the time and have a newsletter for the law firm in English and Spanish every other week,
Mm,
the Power Strategy Group once a month. But like it didn't start that way. Like we built up to that. And so when some people are like, how do you even do that? Well, incrementally, and then you try to see what's the best bang for your buck in terms of your time and energy. And then over time, you're like, well, what's another article? What's another podcast? What's another, like it just sort of becomes second nature, especially if it's built into your schedule and you have the team and you're constantly thinking about how to like repurpose and get the most out of all the content you're making.
yeah. And I think there's probably also an element of what do you enjoy? And you might say, well, I don't enjoy any of it. Well, that's problematic. But if you
Yeah, that
like to
is.
write, yeah, if you like to write, then write. If you like to speak, speak. If you like to interview people, podcasting could be a thing. And I think there's a barrier to entry or a perceived barrier to entry that is sort of a fake or invisible wall. So like podcasting, it's expensive. It takes a lot of time. It's this, it's that, and the other. And the reality is it's not
It's not.
for most people. So I think it's about just being informed on that. But I think to your point, finding what you would like to write about or speak about. What are you trying to accomplish with that? Who's the audience, and how easily can you create that content? Maybe a big part of you getting started.
Yeah. I was sort of reminded of this question. So I was like, through a newly minted attorney, and I went up to this person and I said, I want to speak at this conference. How do I get to speak at this? She's like, well, do you know a lot about something? Are you an expert on? And it felt a little harsh at first, but I was like, well, I know this, She's like, well, do you write about it? Do you speak about it? And I was like, well, okay. So then I was like, pause, I went and I did that, and then I was like, okay, well, that's what I have to do. Okay, fine. To help establish myself as an expert in that space. And then I, was like, well, then I kept adding topics within immigration, for example, and then kept getting myself out there. And then even in the law practice management space, one of the best thing that happened was I was on a committee where we were churning out articles. And then after about 4 years of churning out articles, I was like, well, I could just write a book with this information. And that's really what the beginning of that, my first book, was from that. And I think what I really was intrigued about in meeting you was just how well you've repurposed a lot of content and you're constantly creating. So, from having podcasts that turn into a book or an article, or an interview can turn into an article, or a series of articles can turn into a book. And now with AI tools, there's so many different ways that, like, even with my team, I'm like, if we're not repurposing, if we're not maximizing all of this content, then I'm upset. Like that is like our goal. We
Yeah.
need to make sure that, I can do one thing and we can get five things out of it.
Yeah. But that's really what it comes down to. So let's say a lawyer that knows a lot about employment law and knows that there's a lot of confusion about employment law with non-competes. Are they legit? Are they not? Or whatever the particular area is. And you can say, here's a top 10 list of questions people have about non-competes. And you can do an article of like, here are the top 10 Q&A of non-competes. And you put the question down, write the answer. ChatGPT can help you too, by the way. And now you've got an article. You've got something that you can potentially publish with some legal publication, a bar journal, something like that, or you can just put it up on your website as a blog. You could post it on LinkedIn, right, directly. But you have now something, right? Something
Right.
that's a starting point. Where do you go from there?
Well, there's like, if you were to just have, like, let's say you were to make those 10 points or something like that of like what people need to know in that employment law. Not only could you maybe do like a webinar that you're presenting about that, but then that could be spiced and diced into multiple little videos,
Mm-hmm.
and then each one could be like a little blog post within itself, or it could be like a larger article. And that's also, like you were saying, like you have to know sort of who your audience is, and that goes back to like, what's your master plan? Who are you trying to attract or intrigue? Is it fellow lawyers because you want referrals? Is it the community at large for potential clients, or is it both? And then that content could be used at different levels. Like you maybe have to up it a little bit for the lawyer audience, and maybe you can sort of make it a little bit easier digestible for the lay person. But one of the other things I do a lot is just make little videos, and I WhatsApp it to my assistant in another country, and then she converts that and puts it with subtitles, titles, and captions on all the different social media platforms. And just knowing that I just did one little video at a time that went to all these different platforms makes me feel like I accomplished something. But you're right. Like from the writing, the video, a webinar, and then the more you can get that in multiple platforms, from like, let's say your LinkedIn to your website to a blog on your website, potentially turning into article, then that helps your SEO and probably catch a lot more eyes if you can put it in different bite-sizable, formats.
Yeah. So just to recap, everybody, you've got an idea for something, top 10 of something. That can be an article, that can be a presentation. If it's a presentation, it can be turned into an article and vice versa. That could then turn into something that can be published with a bar journal. It can be published, like I write for Above the Law. I write a little bit for LegalVerse, one of our new sponsors, and a couple other publications that I've written for in the past. And that can then be broken into video chunks. That could be a top 10 list. You could break that into 10 posts that you're going to do on LinkedIn over 10 weeks, right? So there's all kinds of options and opportunities to create and then utilize that creation in multiple ways in multiple different times. And so we think we have to now write 10 like posts, and that's a lot of work and time and effort, when in fact we just need to write a top 10 list of something and then you get 10 posts out of that.
Right. And like if you were to just take like the transcript of like an audit or I don't know, any ChatGPT or whatever of any of your podcast, your webinar, your whatever presentation you do, then you can turn that into multiple little blog posts and articles, and you don't have to actually do a lot of writing. Like if every presentation you ever do, you should turn it into an article or small blog and other small, and you can also do small videos of that by just using different AI tools that you don't even have to re-record. And then if you also use subtitles, you reach people with different languages as well. I think they say that most people are watching these videos on their phone. They don't even listen to the audio a lot of times. So you have to do the subtitles.
Yeah. Well, that's why you get the transcripts. So there's automations where you get the transcript of a podcast or the transcript of a video, and that gives you the subtitles. And by the way, like my son does subtitles with every show he watches. I wasn't sure why. And then I started watching subtitles because I was realizing there's some things like I'll miss something, and like I just would normally just like move on with the show and not think twice about it. But when I have the subtitles in addition to the person speaking, I miss it less. So I'm not sure if that's what's going on with the younger folks. And now I'm starting to do that as an older person.
Like you retain it better.
I think maybe I'm retaining it. I'm not missing things that normally I would miss that could be instrumental to the plot or whatever. But ultimately, there's just a lot to do here. But I think as an individual lawyer, you need to figure out what you would enjoy talking about. I mean, you could even talk about something that's non-legal, right? Like you could say, look, I love Corvettes, or I love fishing, or I love football, and I'm gonna write about that and build. Now that may not be something you post directly on LinkedIn with no point other than talking about football, but you may attract other people that want to read about football. They get to know that you're an attorney, an employment attorney that loves football, and now you start building an audience of football lovers who own businesses and may ultimately want to hire you and engage you because you're the football guy they know or gal they know that also does employment law.
Well, another thing is like people just want to have a connection, right? So like even on my personal social media, I know like I'll get business leads from my people that I know, friends and acquaintances. And a lot of times they like see a picture and like, oh, Ruby does immigration. Oh, okay. And then they message me. So like I think that just being true to who you are and your content, like if you really like I like to post pictures of my garden once in a while or national park trips or something like that. But then people are like, oh, Ruby likes that stuff. Oh yeah, I like that too, or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
And so be that's part of your brand is being authentic to who you truly are and having that resonate. So or like if you write articles but you put lots of, funny, I don't know, quotes or uh, you know, sort of like I don't know, little hidden gems or something that people think are cute and funny.
Yeah.
People remember that.
If you're a rainmaker and you're feeling like you're on an island, you don't have anyone to share your ideas with, solve problems with, you're going to want to check out my Rainmaker Roundtables. Click the link below and learn more. And I think one of the big challenges lawyers have with what we're talking about, in addition to, coming up with what they should create and then how to repurpose it. And I would always say get help, meaning AI, assistance, virtual
Yeah.
assistants. Like, don't think this is something you should be doing at $5,000 to $1,000 an hour, that you should be doing this yourself. I mean, the content creation and the writing maybe at the beginning, and even that you can use ChatGPT. But I think then, a lot of the back end stuff of how you repurpose it should be leveraged through people. But ultimately, I wanted to ask you about how have you seen creating content and repurposing content impact your immigration business and your practice management business? Because I think that's important for people to understand that this isn't an overnight success thing.
Oh yeah.
We're not some crazy, TikTok phenom. I typically this takes an effort over a period of time.
When you follow like a lot of, people who've been in the space or influencers, like they didn't just wake up overnight and start doing this. Like some of them, they've been building out videos on their YouTube for more than a decade or something like that. Like the books I wrote were because of years of me writing articles, thinking, speaking, talking. I have so many PowerPoints. But then, like I forgot to mention, like my book is my textbook for my course. I know that stuff so well. I can just walk in. This is not a true story, but I can walk in and I can just start talking about stuff because it's all in my head. I wrote it, I speak it, I think it. And so it's a textbook. I think about this content. I'm on the podcast. And so those are a lot of the ways that it's been recycled, but it came over time. Like it wasn't an overnight thing. And then the same thing with the immigration space. Like we do an English and Spanish webinar every week for the law firm. But it's because we have so many PowerPoints of all of our content that we've been doing. And then whenever something new happens, we just tweak it a little bit. We don't have to build it out from scratch. But I agree. Like, you have to start somewhere, and AI has made it so much easier. You can get assistant help and find out what you enjoy the most and lean into that and then add. Honestly, some of my funnest times are just getting on and doing social media videos and things like that, especially
Yeah.
when they're like the fun viral type. You can really be silly with those. But I do enjoy it, and I think once you start getting into that rhythm, then it makes it easier to become a habit to want to continue to build that into your schedule.
Yeah. I mean, and if we're talking about just the lowest level of getting started for lawyers, I would say just think about posting on LinkedIn once a week and trying to be consistent with it for 8 weeks and just develop the habit of once a week. It's 15 minutes. Come up with, again, a top 10 list. Come up with what are the top 5 questions you hear every day. Think about things you enjoy personally that you can relate back to business. So I don't think on LinkedIn, this is my take and you can agree or not, but like, it's not Facebook. Don't show your food and say, hey, here's my food. I went to this restaurant. You can do that if you're traveling for business and you want to talk about why it's so important to travel for business and meet people and build relationships. But like I showed a picture of my son and I, we were fishing in Canada last week, and I showed a beautiful picture of us on the lake holding a beautiful fish. And it wasn't like, hey, look at me and this fish. It was, hey, this is why I work so hard. This is why I do all that I do and spend all the time I spend, not only helping attorneys, but making a living. So I can fly, on a jet to, private plane or whatever to go out to, drop us in the middle of nowhere in Canada, fish. So I had a business angle, but the point is like, come up with an idea to help you demonstrate authenticity, demonstrate knowledge and expertise. Don't say you're an expert, and ultimately just figure out what you can post once a week for 8 weeks. I think that's an easy entry point just to get started in content creation.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like LinkedIn has become almost like the grown-up professional Facebook. So it sort of blurs these lines. You're like, is that LinkedIn worthy? But no,
Yeah.
I think, but I yeah, I feel like I'm on it a lot more. A lot of times I can reach people through the LinkedIn chat than they can through their inbox. But yeah, people are living there a lot more, and it is a great way to connect. And I think just building that habit of adding the content and ChatGPT, you can put in there and say, help make us LinkedIn worthy and put icons. I love that. I put the little pretty little
Yeah. And ask it to keep out the end dashes. I think that's an instant giveaway that you've used ChatGPT for helping you
Mhm.
post. And I think one of my clients, Mandy, she put an amazing, very authentic piece together for LinkedIn, and she had sent it to me to review it because I do that I love doing that for my clients. And I counted 9 end dashes in that little
Mm,
post that she did. And I said, hey, do it again, but just have it take out the end dashes because it makes it so clear that it was done through ChatGPT.
mm.
But that all great stuff. I think, most important thing, people just get started. Just push your chips in, start doing something, because ultimately what every lawyer wants, and tell me if I'm wrong, is to have their phone ring. And the phone rings and it's somebody calling with a problem saying, I found you here, I found you there, and I want to hire you or I want to talk to you. And you're like pre-sold, right? Because you've already seen you as the expert you are because they've been following you, they've been listening to you, they've been seeing what you're doing. And if you have nothing out there, in fact, you not only have nothing out there, your LinkedIn is a total disaster. It's all working against you instead of really working for you.
And I think the other thing to note is like content and being a leader in the space begets more content and being a leader in the space. Like
Yeah.
I did an interview this morning with like the public like Houston Matters, like Houston public media type of thing, radio. And it's really when you first get in the media, they don't take you right away unless you've proven yourself as an expert. And knowing that you have publications or you've been on other like TV, live TV doesn't want to have you unless they know you can handle regular,
Yeah.
non-live TV. And then they might record you first to make sure you can handle it. And then you start to build yourself up so that they know that you can do it. But the more you do it, then the more opportunity will come from it. And then it really does become of like keeping it going and maximizing it. And I do think it's an exponential function of what you can accomplish. And I think we're both good examples of how you can repurpose content. And I think the other key takeaway is like go look at other people who are doing it
Mm,
successfully and get ideas, like, oh, I like their LinkedIn post, or I like what they're doing over there, and get inspiration.
yeah. I think that's really important. You're looking at someone who's been successful for 5 or 10 years creating and putting up content and building a brand, and you can emulate that person, right? And you can start saying, hey, this is what they're doing. You're not copying. You're taking what someone's doing, you're making it your own, but you're saying, hey, this is someone who did it. This is how they did it, and I think I can follow their lead. I try to do that for my clients, pretty regularly is, with writing books and podcasting and articles and content and LinkedIn, and they see what I'm doing. And it's not they don't have to be me and do what you and I are doing. They just have to get inspired that, hey, this knucklehead can do it. Maybe I can do it or whatever it might be. So, make it happen, everybody, because, you only get one shot at this thing. And I think business development is important, but it's so much easier when you also have the branding and the marketing component working for you at the same time. Because when I go out and I network, I'm not starting from nothing. I'm out networking. Oh
Hmm.
my God, Steve, I hear your name everywhere I go, or I hear this, or I read that, and I'm like, okay, and this is working. This is working. It's didn't happen overnight, but it is. Um, Changing the subject a little bit on you, Ruby. What's Ruby's big mistake?
Well, I I well, I think one thing that was a challenge for me was when I my husband took a job to the Middle East during the Arab Spring, and I had just given birth to a baby, my first baby, and I landed in a sandstorm with a 6-month-old
Oh
on
my.
my hip in Dubai. No, that's all a true story. But I ran my law firm from the Middle East for about with a 10 and 11 hour time difference. I forgot what it was, but I took that disadvantage of having to move to halfway around the world a year and a half into starting a practice. And I found positive, like, what can I turn this into an advantage? And so, Sundays were a work day in Dubai. So when my American-based folks could have Sunday consults and meetings with me, they loved it. When I could just have quiet before America woke up and I could actually get work done and before my emails started getting flooded, I loved that. And I sort of niched down in a practice area within immigration. And then when I came back, continued to grow. But also by the time the pandemic happened, it was second nature for me to run a hybrid practice or a completely virtual practice. So I don't know if I look at in terms of a mistake, but it was what could have been a disaster in terms of my assistant told me, she's like, well, you're going to have to go to every one of your clients and ask them if they want to stay with you. And I said, no, I'm going to go to every client and say, this is how it's going to work. And I didn't lose anybody.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, again, I think sometimes it's the challenges that are in front of us that help define us, and how we overcome them is really what this world is all about. So really, really great stuff. Hey, let's take a moment, thank our wonderful sponsors. Of course, Sonia Palmer with the Law Her podcast. Fantastic. We've got PimCon coming up in October, and that's at the Venetian Hotel in Scottsdale, Arizona. I will be there on stage talking about podcasts with a couple of great other podcasters. And we've got LegalVerse. If you're looking for strategy as a lawyer, insights on planning, growth, long-term success in the legal industry, check out legalverse.com. It's actually legalversemedia.com, so check that out. And Ruby, if people want to get in touch with you, they want to, look at you, talk to you about immigration, they want to talk to you about law practice management, technology, what are the best ways for them to reach you?
So probably LinkedIn is the best way. Ruby Powers, RubyPowers. And then for the law firm, it's Ruby Powers Law. The firm is called Powers Law Group, and we're federal area law, so we can help people all around the world on U.S. immigration-based matters. And then Power Strategy Group, which has Power Up Your Practice, the podcast, and the book, which is available on Amazon, and our school community, Power Up Your Practice. So yeah, just reach out to me on LinkedIn. We can get connected.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show, sharing your wisdom. I hope this was helpful for people who are stuck with not creating content, not posting anything, just kind of taking for granted that it's okay not to play the game. And I think it's important to get in the game, play the game, and then decide what level you want to play the game. So I really appreciate you coming on and talking to everybody through that.
No, I definitely agree, Steve. And I think you help inspire me as well to keep playing the game,
Keep playing the
taking it to the next
game.
level.
That's it. That's it. Don't get your pants dirty on the sidelines, right? Let's stand up and get in and have some action. Well, listen, everybody, thank you so much for hanging out with Ruby and I for the last half an hour. I really hope that you take to heart what we shared today, and that it helps you to be that lawyer, confident, organized, and a skilled rainmaker. Take care, everybody. Be safe, be well. We'll talk again soon. Are you ever curious what's really holding you back in business development? Sometimes it's hard to see the label from the inside of the bottle. I'm Steve Fretzen, and I can help you grow your book of business. Get a 30-minute free consultation with me. We'll identify gaps, identify your potential, and let's take it to the next level so you can be that lawyer. Click the link below for a free consultation.